Hello and welcome to the college application process for Wesley Chapel High School. I'm Mrs. Faysash. I am the school's college and career specialist and so excited for you to join us tonight as we talk about college and university applications. We will be mostly focused on university applications tonight. We'll cover a couple other different things, but this is just currently the time period to submit those applications, so I want to make sure you have all the information for that. I do really encourage you to have your student reach out to me so that we can meet personally and come up with an individualized plan, regardless if they choose a university, a college, military, a trade, or career. As the college and career specialist, there are a few things that your student can reach out to me for, including, of course, applications, SAT and ACT testing. I also am able to give fee waivers to any students who are on free or reduced lunch. As a free and reduced lunch student, you will get 2 free SAT and 2 free ACT fee waivers to use between junior and senior year. If you receive these fee waivers, you also will get free college applications. So please do not pay for any of that. Come and see me and I can help you with that. Scholarships, I do have a monthly scholarship newsletter, so I would encourage you to sign up for my remind at the end of this session. Financial aid, military recruitment, careers and trades, resume and interview skills, as well as post-graduation planning. Even if your student isn't quite sure what they want to do after high school, I'd love to meet with them to give them some options. Students have several pathways after high school. Some will go on to a four-year university. Others will go to a state or community college with the intention of then transferring to a university after they receive their associate in arts degree. Some students will go to the state and community college for a 2-year Associate of Science degree in things like nursing or EMS. Some students will just go and take classes and get a certificate in something such as paramedic, or they'll get an EMT license. Trade and technical schools are right here in Pasco County as well. We have representatives in each of the military branches, so if that is something that your student would like more information on, please come and see me. And some students choose to go right into the workforce. As I said, we do have a local technical school. It's Marchman Technical College. They have everything from culinary to welding to medical, cosmetology, electric and HVAC, graphic design and TV production. There are so many options for Marchman. It's very reasonable. They do accept financial aid, and I would be happy to talk to anyone about those programs. As I said, some students will go to community college with the intention of transferring to a university after 2 years, but community colleges have so much more to offer than just that 2-year Associate of Arts degree. They have Associate of Science degrees in everything from nursing to radiography and dental hygienist. You can get licenses in paramedic and EMT, firefighter and corrections. You can get a 2-year college degree in business and computers where you take that and go right to the workforce. Please come and talk to me about PHSC or HSC if you think some of these options sound good for you. And then, of course, we can go to a 4-year college and get our bachelor's degree with the intention of that just getting that 4 years degree, or to get a master's or go on to more professional school after that. Florida Academic Scholars is available to seniors who meet the following requirements. They have a 3.5 weighted GPA in their core classes by the end of senior year. They have taken at least 2 years of the same foreign language. They score a 1330 SAT or a 29 ACT on one of the college entrance exams. They have 100 community service hours. If they meet these requirements by the end of senior year, 100% of their tuition and fees will be paid to a Florida public university or college. This is also renewable for 4 years as long as students keep a 3.0 weighted GPA in their college courses. The Florida Medallion Scholars is the second level of Bright Futures, which requires a 3.0 weighted GPA in core classes by the end of senior year, also 2 years of the same foreign language, a 1210 SAT or a 25 ACT, and 75 community service hours. If students meet those by the end of senior year, 75% of their tuition and fees will be paid to a Florida public university. If they decide to attend a community or a state college,
100% of their tuition and fees will be paid at the state and community college level, and then if they transfer to a university later, it will go down to that standard 75%. This is also renewable for 4 years as long as students keep a 2.75 GPA in their college level courses.
Many people wonder how many schools we should apply for when it comes to colleges and universities, and it really is important to understand the admissions criteria and where you fall on the admissions scale. You're able to Google pretty much any university and see what their mid 50% range is for the students that were accepted the prior year. If you fall right within that range, you can consider that to be a match school for you. We really only need to apply to 2 to 3 match schools unless we're just really not sure where we want to go and want to keep that a little bit more open. But that would be, the match schools would be where our GPA and our test scores fit the profile of the students that are currently enrolled at that college or university. We also sometimes have schools where we don't fit the exact profile, but we really do want to consider going there. Those would be called our reach schools, and we can apply to several reach schools. I usually suggest at least 1 to 2. You're certainly welcome to apply to more than that. For most people, University of Florida would be considered a reach school at this point, just because they do only usually accept about 30% of the applicants, and it is quite high with their test scores and GPA. So for some students that will be a match school, but for a lot that would just be an example of a reach school. It doesn't necessarily have to be an Ivy League school. I also suggest that you apply to 1 to 2 safety schools. For most of us, PHSC can be a safety school because the only thing that we need in order to enroll for college courses is a high school diploma, which the vast majority of us should have by the time June rolls around. For some people, USF would also be a safety school, and for some people, USF would be a reach school. It really is going to depend on your test scores and GPA, which is one of the reasons I'd like to meet with you personally so that we can really create that school list for you that has the reach, match, and safety schools.
Let's take a look at the current admission standards for the Florida public universities. The matrix that I'm about to show you is based on admissions for the class of 2021, not just at our school, but around the nation. So this is going to show us the mid 50% of students that were accepted for each school. We'll be able to take a look at the summer and fall GPAs, test score averages, and on the papers that are out front, you'll be able to also see the acceptance rate, important deadlines, as well as what transcript reporting system each university is using. So don't forget to pick one of those up. So as you can see, this is half of our Florida public universities, and we can find our school, move across, take a look at the application types accepted, as well as the summer and fall GPAs. You'll be able to see S for summer and F for fall. Just remember, this is the mid 50% accepted, so there will be 25% that were accepted with lower GPAs, as well as 25% that were accepted with higher GPAs. We also can take a look at the SAT and the ACT scores for summer and fall admissions. This is the second half of our Florida public universities, again showing the GPA, SAT, and ACT scores for the mid 50% of students that were accepted from the class of 2021. Feel free to stop by my office to pick up the full matrix here if you'd like to also see the other information that is included, including the SSAR, transfer programs that they might have, and deadlines.
Let's talk about how we would attend PHSC, Pasco Hernando State College. As I mentioned earlier, you will only need a standard high school diploma in order to work on college credit at PHSC. Though you don't necessarily need SAT or ACT scores to attend, they can use those in order to place you in your English and math classes for college credit. If you don't have them, you will simply take the PERT test at PHSC. It's an untimed test, and they can use that for your placement. You do not need 2 years of a foreign language to attend PHSC, but if you plan to go on to a university, you will take 2 semesters of a foreign language while you're there. The benefits to attending PHSC are that the class sizes are much smaller than you would find at a public university. You can expect classes like high school, probably 30 or less, versus a university where several hundred students might be in your classroom. It's also half the cost of a university, so it makes for a very good financial decision to attend PHSC first for those first 2 years while you're working on your general education requirements. It also gives you some time to decide on your major if you're not quite sure what you'd like to study at the university level. You can go ahead again and work on those general education requirements and then decide what you'd like to work on for your major before actually entering the university. We have 3 ways that we can apply to schools, and we'll go over briefly what each of those looks like. So we can apply to schools using the institutional application, and that would basically just be going to the institution or university website and applying through their online application. That's definitely the way to go if you plan to just apply to a couple schools. Personally, I would recommend using Common Application for most students at commonapp.org or the Coalition application at mycoalition.org. We're going to go through exactly what each of these options looks like and which one your student should use. The institutional application, as I said, is really best if you only plan on applying to a couple schools or if the university does not participate in Common and Coalition applications. Especially if there's no overlap between the applications. We don't want to do an entire Common application and a Coalition application and an institutional application. We're really trying to make the most use of our time and do the least amount of applications possible. You can still use fee waivers for institutional applications. You will have to upload those or email them to the university. Please see me and I can go through this with you. One example of people who would have to use the institutional application would be students that are applying to Florida International University. They're not currently on Common or Coalition applications, so you would have to go to fiu.edu in order to apply there. If you'd plan on just staying local and going to either PHSC or USF, then again, I probably would not recommend doing a Common and Coalition application. Just go to usf.edu to apply. And then, of course, PHSC won't be on the Common and Coalition application. It's just universities at this time, so we would just apply through phsc.edu. One of the benefits of making a Common application is that there are over 800 universities on this application. So for many of us, we can simply do Common App and apply to all of the schools that we would like to apply to. You can apply to 20 schools, and for most of us, that's way more than we'll ever need. We can also track important deadlines and admission criteria on the website. You can also get a fee waiver applied to your account if you're on free or reduced lunch or have received a test waiver. You would simply do that in your profile tab. There'll be a section that says fee waiver. You'll answer a couple of questions and then you'll put my email address in. I will get an email to approve your fee waiver and then you can apply to 20 schools on Common App for free. These are the current Florida schools that are on the Common application. As you can see, the vast majority of these schools are the ones that our students will be applying to. We have University of South Florida, North Florida, University of Florida, Florida State, St. Leo, University of Central Florida is on here as well. So for most of us, this is going to cover all of the schools that we have an interest in. And that's why I said to really look closely at the schools because we can simply do this one application and cover everything that we would need.
If students are using Common App, they will need to add a counselor in the Recommenders and FERPA section under My Colleges. So that counselor will be me. I am the one at Wesley Chapel High School who will upload the student transcripts as well as the school profile to their account. If they go under My Colleges, they can click on any of the schools that they've added and go to the second part, which is Recommenders and FERPA, and it actually will be applied to all of the schools. So after they fill out the FERPA section, they will be asked to invite a recommender if that's necessary for their application and also a counselor. The counselor is where they'll put my information, which I'll show you on the next slide. As far as recommenders are concerned, not all schools will need teacher recommendations, so please check with each school to see if they're going to require that.
This is the information that you should put into that section. It really is going to just ask for my name, my title, my email, and my phone number. So as long as all of that gets in there, I will get an invite on your behalf and I can upload those documents. If you don't use Common App, you might use the Coalition for College Access application, the Coalition app. There are only about 140 members on this application, But the cool thing about the coalition colleges is that they are committed to providing aid to under-resourced, underserved, and first-generation college students. So if a college is on this application, we know that they are really committed to financial aid for those who need it. You actually don't need to get a fee waiver for your college applications from me for the Coalition app. It simply is going to ask you a couple of questions. You will answer those questions and a fee waiver will be applied to your account automatically. So that does make it very easy. If you're applying to USF and some other Florida schools, this might be a great application for you because I'm about to show you in a moment, but it does have most of the schools on there. They also have a cool area for, it's called the locker, and you can basically put in your high school activities and awards and just kind of keep everything together. So it's kind of neat for college planning and such. So for the Florida schools, you can see it's a smaller list, and there are definitely some that are not on here. I would say most obvious would be UCF, University of Central Florida, is not on here. But if you're not planning to apply to UCF, maybe you're just doing USF and University of Florida, Florida State, this might be a great application for you.
For each university that you apply for, you'll be asked to select the term for your application. Traditionally, students would select fall for the term that they would like to apply for. This is the most difficult term to receive acceptance in, but there are also several other options for the student, including summer and spring. So let's talk about each. So for fall, you can check fall on the application, and if you do check fall, you actually will be automatically considered for summer and spring. So that's an easy way to just make sure all of your bases are covered. Like I said, it is the most difficult semester to get accepted into because that is the semester that they do report for their averages of test scores and GPAs for their incoming freshmen. Summer is also a wonderful semester to get started. So you would start this summer after graduation. Basically, this would be summer of 22. For most schools, they will require you to take 1 to 2 online or campus classes before you start the fall semester. This is a really great way to get acclimated with the college and with their learning platform before everyone descends for fall. There are also some special programs that some of the universities have for certain candidates. If maybe their GPAs are a little bit lower than they would traditionally accept, there are some need-based programs, there are some first-generation programs. So summer actually does offer quite a bit. If you'd like to get started in the summer, you'd simply just click that button and then you will be considered for summer admission, and then again you would go right into fall admission right after that. And then spring would be the easiest acceptance that you might have. Not all colleges offer a spring admission, but some do, including USF and UCF. Florida State also has some options where you would go to community college in the fall and then start with Florida State in the spring. So that's an option as well.
When should you apply? So I recommend everyone applying by November 1st to get that priority consideration. When you're filling out applications, you're going to see that some applications say, and I'll just use USF as an example, I think it says March 1st, it might even be April 1st this year for applications being due. And while that is true, and you certainly can be considered up until that point, you are going to have a priority application giving you a little bit of extra consideration. So I personally would recommend trying to get all of your applications in by November 1st, especially if it's a rolling admission school where they're looking at applications and making decisions as they come in. For schools like FSU and UF, they are usually a November 1st hard deadline as well. Definitely meet those deadlines. Now for those schools, it does not matter if you get it in early because they're not going to be looking at those applications until that time. Again, have your student go ahead and check with me to see what type of admission, if it's rolling or if it's more of a concrete date, and I can tell them when they should be applying and getting their applications in.
As a parent, you might remember applying to college by simply submitting your application and then getting the registrar from your high school to send a transcript to the universities that you applied to. It's a little bit more complicated now because many of the universities are using a different system in order to process the transcripts. They're using what's referred to as the SAR, Student Self-Reported Academic Record. So you can see that the universities below, FAMU, FSU, FAU, Florida Poly, UNF, UF, and UWF are all using the self-reported transcript. So you will not need to send official transcripts from the high school to the universities. You will only do that to the school that you actually end up attending, and that will only be the final transcript, which will be available next June. So the way that schools are actually going to be processing your application and looking at your academics is through what you self-report. So of course it's very important that these be extremely accurate, because we are going to have to follow up with a final transcript to the school that we're attending, and it needs to match what we've put into this SAR system. So if you are applying to any of these schools, what you're going to do is you're going to submit your application to the school using Common App, Coalition App, or their institutional application, whichever one you prefer. And then after that, you're going to create an account on SAR where you will get a transcript from me. This will be an unofficial transcript, and you will use this transcript to record all of your classes that you've taken throughout high school, as well as any middle school, high school credit classes that you've taken. You're going to report all of that high school coursework, including any withdrawals or repeated attempts at courses. Schools are not going to be using your senior grades to make an admissions decision, but you do need to list your senior coursework and select in progress for the grades. You'll do the senior coursework for this semester as well as for spring semester. You are not going to go back into SAR to update with your first semester senior grades. Remember, they're not using senior grades in the admissions process. If you do need to edit any information, you need to make sure that you save and resubmit your SAR and click complete so that it goes all the way through again. When you finish SAR, it's going to give you a very long code. I believe it's 16 digits long. You're going to use this to copy and paste this into the portals for each individual school that you create after submitting your application. So for example, let's say you apply to UF. UF, a couple days after you submit your application, is going to send you a link to their Gator link, and that's basically a portal where you will report your SAR so that they can link it to your account. You can self-report test scores, and of course you'll eventually be able to see your admissions decision on there. So you need to do that for each school that requires the SAR. You'll need to go ahead and link that long number into the university portal. I know this is probably a little bit confusing, so please reach out to me if you have any questions. Also with dual enrollment, some of the classes can be a little bit tricky to put in, so if you have taken dual enrollment, especially English junior year, come see me and I'll just take a quick peek and make sure that that's put in accurately.
For some schools, you will not need an SSAR. You won't need to create that. You'll simply need to request a transcript on our Wesley Chapel High School website. So you can go to the main page of our Wesley Chapel High School website, scroll to the bottom, and you will see this little tab for request a transcript. For public colleges, for the big colleges, you're going to be able to have those sent electronically. If it's a smaller school, you may need to have the hard copy sent, but it's very easy to fill out, and then we can go ahead and send that on your behalf. If you're not quite sure what to select, again, come and see me and I'll help you with that.
There can sometimes be some confusion when dual enrolled students are applying for college. So let's go over a few important things. First of all, any students who have taken dual enrollment credit, regardless if they have 40 hours or they're receiving their AA for all the dual enrollment credit that they have earned, they are still going to apply as a first time in college or freshman student. So you'll look on the application, some of them it's FTIC, some of it is freshman. Students actually are not considered transfer students unless they've completed at least 12 hours of college coursework after high school graduation. So this does not include dual enrollment. Dual enrolled students are still required to have ACT or SAT test scores if the school requires them, and their high school transcripts sent to have their applications processed, and they will be assessed with all the other freshman applicants. It's also important as you're picking out your spring dual enrollment classes, or if you're a junior looking at senior dual enrollment classes, that you look at the major prerequisites at the universities to guide you on your dual enrollment class selection. Sometimes students end up with 60 hours of dual enrollment, but they haven't taken the prerequisites that are necessary for the major that they plan on. This is especially important for potential STEM majors. Nursing, biology, pre-med anything, and engineering are going to have several math and science courses that students would be expected to complete their freshman and sophomore year. So if you're looking to go in as potentially a junior level student, even though we're applying as first time in college, then you really want to make sure that what you're taking is lining up with where you're expected to be when you're at the university.
In addition to your high school transcript, some students may need to send additional documents to the colleges that they're applying to. One would be a dual enrollment transcript if a student has taken dual enrollment courses their sophomore or junior year. If you're only taking dual enrollment as a senior, you won't need to worry about sending this transcript until after you graduate. You can send a transcript through your PHSC WISE account. Also, it's very important to make sure you understand the deadlines for your colleges and universities receiving official reports for ACT and SAT. Sometimes students get confused because it will ask on all applications for you to self-report your scores, but the majority of colleges are going to need official test scores in order to process your application. You may have already sent these test scores with your free sends when you registered for the tests, but it's really important to check and make sure that you did. I can help you with that if you're not sure if you did. If you did not, you can certainly go to these websites and pay to have your scores sent to the schools. After graduation, all students attending a college or a university will need to send a final transcript. This shows your graduation date, the type of diploma received, and of course your final senior grades. It's very important to send this next summer so that you're able to register for your college classes. If you're on my Remind, I will send out a reminder to you once these transcripts are ready, which is usually about a week after graduation. Also keep in mind that schools do not need your AP exam score report in order to process your university or college application, but they will need this score report from College Board in order to assign you college credit. You really only need to send this to the school that you ultimately decide to attend. My recommendation would be that when you're filling out your registration for your AP exams in the spring, that you go ahead and indicate the school you plan to attend so they can receive that free score report with those scores as well as your past scores.
Let's take a moment and discuss how COVID has impacted testing for university admission. As of today, all Florida public universities are requiring either the SAT or ACT scores to have an admissions application processed. So though some of the universities did want to go test optional, especially last year, the State Board of Governors would have to be the one to make that change for public universities, and they declined to make that change. You will see that over 1,400 colleges and universities have gone test optional or test blind. So there definitely are several schools within Florida that are test optional now, and there's so many out of state as well, including some of the out of state public universities, Ivy League schools, top 50 schools to look at. So one thing to remember is test optional and test blind are two different criteria. So for test blind, that means that they will not consider test scores in their admissions process at all. Most schools are actually test optional, which means that they can consider test scores in the admissions process if you send them. You won't be penalized for not sending them, but if you're applying to a competitive school and your test scores are strong, I would go ahead and recommend that you send those.
Colleges are going to superscore your ACT and SAT in order to help you have the highest profile possible for your admissions application. For the most part, colleges are not going to penalize students for underperforming on the assessments. So it really is a good idea to make sure all of your test scores are sent so they can use those scores to superscore. In order to superscore an SAT, they'll be combining your top reading and math scores from all tests. In order to superscore their ACT, they're going to combine your top subject area scores from the 4 sections and then divide by 4, and that will be your new composite score. Once you apply to a school, whether you are using the SAR to get them your grades or they are looking at the transcript that I upload to one of the sites, they are going to recalculate your GPA. So the schools are going to recalculate your GPA mostly based on your core courses like English, math, science, social studies, foreign language, and academic electives. They are still going to give you your honors points for honors, AP, and dual enrollment courses, but just to kind of keep in mind that just because I'm telling a student that they have a certain unweighted and weighted GPA and we're putting those on our application, that does not mean that's the GPA that the college is using to make their decision. If a student is curious what their recalculated GPA is going to be, they can come and ask me for their Bright Futures GPA, and that will probably be the closest that we can get it. After their application is processed, they're able to call the universities and they can always ask what their recalculated GPA came out to be from each of the universities, as they all have a little bit of a different way of doing it. If a student has retaken the class, most of the universities are going to use both grades when recalculating your GPA.
There are several upcoming ACT and SAT testing dates for seniors that are still looking to improve their scores for their applications. Ideally, all of our testing is completed by December 1st. Some schools will still allow December testing, so it's important to look at the university deadlines. But ideally, if we can get through that SAT November 6th and be finished with our testing for admissions purposes, that would be ideal. So our next SAT is going to be October 2nd. You can late register until September 21st for that. October 23rd is the next ACT, and you can still register for that with regular registration by September 17th. And then we have the November 6th SAT with regular registration open until October 8th. It's very important that when you register for your tests that you go ahead and use your 4 free score sends when you register. If you don't use those score sends, the schools are not going to receive your official scores. It's also important because with those score sends, the schools will actually get that information to Bright Futures if you are trying to get those Bright Futures numbers as well. You have to send it to a Florida public university for Bright Futures to get the information. When filling out your applications, make sure you include all future test dates so that the schools know that you may be sending additional information to them when they're making their decisions. You can go ahead and submit applications without your test scores, even if you know you're going to continue to test. A lot of people think, okay, I'm not taking the ACT until October 23rd, and I need to get my score back, and then I'll apply. That's definitely not the way to do it. We want to get our applications completed and dated as soon as we can, and then the scores will get there when they get there, but our application will be dated with that earlier time. It's always going to be more competitive as the application cycle continues on versus the beginning of the application cycle. Schools will always update and superscore as they receive new information. So you're not going to be penalized, remember, for testing again. They will continue to update the portal with the most accurate information and the highest information for your tests.
Florida universities are going to be asking you for Florida residency information, and I just wanted to briefly go over this so that you knew what to include for this. This is in order for them to get Florida tuition, which of course we want because out-of-state residents are going to pay 3 times what a Florida resident would pay. So they usually are going to require 2 or 3 documents for Florida residency. What you'd like to do is choose one parent for this information. So we don't want to be splitting it between several parents. Just choose one parent and get the documents for this one parent. So personally, I recommend your driver's license as one of the documents. If you have your voter's registration, because we know that's coming up, using that number for another document, and then the Florida vehicle registration, you can use that. You're going to look for the decal information and the plate issue date. Those are usually, to me, the 3 easiest for your Florida residency. There is a huge list that they will give you of other things that you can use, but personally, the driver's license, voter's registration, and vehicle registration are really easy to get your hands on and usually just the easiest to upload as well. So after you submit your application, most schools are going to send you an email in 1 to 3 days with instructions to access their specific university portal. Basically, at that point, for any schools that are requiring the SSAR, the SAR report, you are going to link that SAR in your portal. There's a huge number you'll copy and paste into it. It'll be very obvious. And sometimes you will also be asked to self-report your test scores. Even though we already self-reported them on Common App, they may ask you to self-report on their university portal as well. Admissions decisions are always going to be posted on these university online portals well before you receive a letter or an email. So make sure to check them often if you know, especially their rolling admission. You can also use these university portals to check to make sure that your documents have been received and there's no holds on your admissions decision. It's definitely something you should look at pretty often to see, have my test scores been received, has my transcript been processed, is my residency information up to date. Those are important things, and most universities need those things in order to make that decision, and we don't want to get our decisions delayed because we're missing something. I'm going to very briefly touch on early action and early decision if you are applying to a competitive top 50 university. Some schools are going to give you the option for early action or early decision, and I'm just going to very briefly mention what each of these are. With early action, this is just giving you an earlier date to get your application in by in order to receive a decision early in the admission cycle, most likely December through February. You'll probably have to get your application in by November 1st or 15th, and then they will actually come back and tell you if you got in December through February, which is quite early for a Ivy League or a top 50 type of school. A lot of times those decisions don't even come out until April. You can consider the acceptance offer, but you do not have to commit. There's nothing binding about early action. You can apply to other colleges under any regular admissions plans. You can even apply to several colleges early action, unless it's restricted early action that says you can only apply to one, but most are just normal early action, and you can apply to several early action universities. You will give the colleges a decision by May 1st, just as you would for any of the other schools that you're applying for. Really, the benefit to this is that you are getting like an early decision to see if you might get in, especially if this is a university that you're really interested in. A lot of times we're even deferred into regular decision, which it's not an issue there, but if you think you can get your application and all of your documents in early, this is a good way to do it. Most people aren't just outright denied, they're usually just deferred to regular decision. Early decision is different from early action as it is binding. And in order to apply early decision, I have to go over something on the Common App with students, and I usually will also call the parent to make sure they understand the ramifications of early decision. So again, most of the time you're going to be applying early by November 1st to your first choice college. You will get an early admissions decision from the college, usually by December. But with early decision, it is binding. You are agreeing to attend the college if the college accepts you and offers you a financial aid package that is considered adequate by the family. Now, each college, and I'll go over this a little bit more in October during my financial aid night, but each college has a calculator on their website to show approximately what type of aid you would get and the amount you'd be responsible for. So it's really important to understand this. You can only apply to one college early decision. And then once you get that decision, you have to basically go and retract all of your college admissions applications from other schools. So I can apply to one college early decision. I can apply to several other schools under a regular decision. But then if I get that early decision and it's a positive decision for me, I have to go back and withdraw my other applications. So this one's a little bit tricky because you won't know what other schools you get into with regular decision. And those schools might have given you a better financial aid package. So it's a little bit of a tricky thing. A lot of people are deferred anyway, but come and talk to me if you're thinking about doing one of these early decisions. We can go over the pros and cons. If you're applying to UF or FSU, UCF, or FGCU, University of Miami, or some other prestigious schools, you will have to write an essay through Common App or Coalition App, as well as several short responses for the universities. It's really important that we think about what our essay topic is going to be, and we spend a lot of time on this. This is definitely not something we'd want to throw together really quickly. What I like to talk about with this essay is to ask yourself, could another student have written this essay? And if your answer is yes, then you might want to rethink your topic to come up with something that's a little bit more unique to you. They really want insight into who you are, and this is going to be the best way for them to see this. So we're just going to go over a couple things on the essay. Number one is you are going to write in first person, I, me, my. I know we're told not to do that a lot in the types of writing that we've been doing, but this is definitely a personal narrative, and you're going to be wanting to talk in first person the whole time. Think creatively about your topic. So we don't want to talk about things that are already in our application because they already have that information. This should be new information for them, not a restatement of what you've already told them in your activities section or your community service section. We really want to create a deep connection for the reader. So what is your unique perspective on this topic? This is where I get to know you, your thoughts, and your feelings about something. You want to show individuality, and you definitely want to have voice in your essay. I'm happy to read your essays, and I can usually tell within the first paragraph if it has voice or not, or if it just comes across flat. Go ahead and Google College Essay Guide or College Essay Advisors. They have so many free resources that you can use to help you brainstorm a topic for your college applications, look at samples of essays, and also it's going to help you just put together a personal narrative. They do have some paid programs too. I honestly would not even worry about doing the paid programs because there's so much free resources on these websites that I don't think you'll run out by the time your college applications are due. Make sure you pay attention to your word count, your character, make sure you're writing spell check and looking at your grammar. You also want to make sure that you type any essays or short responses into a Word document. So don't just do it in the Common App, because you're going to find that you're going to be able to use these essays for a lot of other things, especially scholarships. With scholarships, most of the time we are going to have to write some essays and short responses, and we can take these and we can just personalize them to each scholarship if it's in a Word document. So make sure that you keep this document someplace safe and don't just have it in the Common App. If you're interested in the Honors College, there are honors colleges at most universities, and you will either automatically gain acceptance to these based on your grades or test scores, or sometimes you will have to put in an honors application. For some schools, and I'll use UF as an example here, and FSU I believe as well, you actually will be applying to the Honors College on your Common App application. There will be a question that asks you if you would like to apply to the Honors College, and if you select yes, you will have to answer some other questions in order to be considered for that. So the way an honors college would work is that you have to get into the university first. So you're going to have to make that first cut. Then they're going to look at the honors applications from the students they accepted, and then they will make a cut based on the top of those candidates. The benefits is you are going to be in a smaller community. You are going to have what I would consider accelerated advising. Just you'll have people that are specific to the Honors College. It is a nice community setting, and you are going to get some really nice research and networking opportunities, some of which will be paid. You will start to receive offers of acceptance at different times. You don't have to make a final decision until May 1st, though, of course, most students will make it quite before that. You can go ahead and accept earlier if you do finalize your decision, and I would just encourage you to go into your portals and decline offers from any other universities that you've been accepted to. That really is going to help your peers because several students will be placed on wait lists, and they basically will be on those wait lists until the school starts receiving declined offers from students that were admitted. Just make sure that you pay attention to the deadlines of when you need to submit your admissions deposit by. Any housing deadlines, housing usually is going to be on a first come, first served basis. So if you decide to attend a school earlier on, I would go ahead personally and submit your housing deposit to that school so that you can be higher up on that list. And then also keep in mind any scholarship deadlines that the individual school may have as well. I know we've been talking a lot about the universities, and I just wanted to quickly go over what the 2+2 pathway is if your student feels that they are going to be best suited starting at a community or state college for 2 years before they finish up at the university. So they will spend 2 years at a state college and then 2 years at a university. The university will be where they'll work on their coursework for their major. They'll earn their associate's degree for their first 2 years at the state college, which is going to be 60 hours. They still are going to be doing those same classes regardless if they were at the community college or at the university for those first 2 years. 36 hours will be what are called general education classes, similar to high school where they have to have certain sciences and math, English, etc. And they'll also have 24 hours of electives. So that'll be 8 classes that they can choose what they'd like to take. And sometimes people will do this based on things that they're interested in with their major. If they look at the university, sometimes they'll see prerequisites that the university wants them to have before they get there. So there's a lot of options for those elective classes. They do need to attain at least a C in the general ed classes. The specific programs do require more, like if you're going into engineering or nursing, a C is definitely not going to be enough for those classes. You're probably looking at B's and A's. After you get that Associates of Arts degree, that spring semester before you get it, you can apply to a university as a transfer student. It's going to be much easier to get in as a transfer student to a university than a freshman first time in college. You will not need SAT or ACT test scores if you are applying as a transfer student with an Associate of Arts degree. So that is one great thing. You also are not even going to need to send your high school transcript. The only thing they're going to be looking at is your college transcript from those first 2 years working on your Associate of Arts degree. Of course, the better your grades, the better opportunity you're going to have to get into the university of your choice. Let's talk about applying to Pasco Hernando State College, PHSC. We don't need to worry about applying with our online application until the spring. I'll start sending out reminders in January when it's time to do this. We are going to have to pay $25 to have our application processed, and just like the universities, we'll also have to establish that Florida residency for tuition purposes. Now, a big change with community colleges versus the university is we won't be submitting any transcripts until after graduation. So they won't be looking at a GPA in order to admit us or not. Remember, it's all based on our high school traditional graduation diploma. So after graduation, probably about a week after, I will send out a text to let everyone know when final transcripts are ready with a link of how to request those to send to PHSC. Beginning on October 1st, you can go ahead and sign up for financial aid through FAFSA, which I'll discuss in a moment, even though we're not putting in our PHSC application until later on. Financial aid and scholarships can be worked on from now until you graduate, so I would definitely encourage you to do those earlier rather than later. If you don't have ACT and SAT tests, then in the spring you can schedule a PERT test with PHSC for that college placement. Depending on COVID, we may be having our senior blitz virtually or it might be in person, but basically that's going to be a student orientation for chapel students that will be attending PHSC, and that's usually in April. As we get closer to that graduation date, you'll be able to schedule a meeting with an academic advisor at PHSC to select your classes for the fall. I will be hosting a financial aid and scholarship night in early October, but I did want to just give you a brief glimpse of a couple important things for financial aid. The first one is the Florida Financial Aid Application, FFAA. This opens October 1st of a student's senior year, and they have until next August in order to file this, but of course earlier is always better. This is primarily needed for the Bright Futures Scholarship. You do not need to have met the Bright Futures criteria in order to file an application. So we want to go ahead and file it now, and we will continue to be evaluated for eligibility. This is also used for several other Florida aid opportunities, so even if Bright Futures is not something that you're going for, I would definitely suggest filling out this application. Let's go over our application timelines one last time. Remember, with rolling admissions for schools like USF, UCF, FAU, UNF, November 1st is going to be the priority application deadline. But because these schools do evaluate applications as they come in, I recommend you apply even earlier. September and October would be great for this, and that way you'll receive an early decision before a lot of people begin to submit those applications. Schools with fixed admission deadlines like UF and FSU are usually November 1st, but check the website for details because some of these may be pushed back due to COVID. With a fixed admission deadline, you do not have to get your admissions application in early. There's really no benefit to doing that because they will not start looking at applications until that November 1st date. With that student self-reported academic record, we can begin working on that now once we get the transcript, and the deadline for those will vary, so make sure you check the school to see when that needs to be linked with the application. Test scores would be the same thing. We need to check the school to see if we can self-report or if they have to receive an official report from ACT or SAT, and by when. So here's the big things to think about as we start to wrap this up. What schools am I applying to, and what platform am I using for each school? Am I using Common App Coalition or an institution application? Did I submit all of my Florida residency documents? If I have application fee waivers, did I submit them? Did I attach my SAR number or send an official transcript, or have Ms. Faysash upload a transcript to Common App? Because we know that they need one of those 3 transcripts. Did I send a dual enrollment transcript if I already have dual enrollment credit? Did I have my official scores sent from College Board or ACT to the school? And did I create a portal with the state universities to check the status of my application and my documents? So it's really important to go through those and make sure that you've done those so that your applications are able to be processed. If you're a junior and you're wondering what you can do this year in order to help yourself for next year, let's go over just a couple of things. Number one is I would recommend that you take the PSAT on October 29th at school. It's $20. If you qualify for free or reduced lunch, I can give that to you with a waiver for free. But that's a great opportunity just to get another time to practice for that SAT. The biggest thing really is to be working on those test scores. It becomes very stressful when it's senior year and we don't have the test scores that we want to get into the university of our choice. So it's really important to start a prep program now for SAT and ACT. Come and see me and I can help you with that. I want to go ahead and register for testing as a junior. I want to make sure I have an SAT and an ACT under my belt by the time I finish my junior year. I also want to make sure I register for my grades. Like we talked about earlier in this presentation, junior year grades are the last grades that these colleges will see to make an admissions decision. So it really is important that these grades are our top grades. This is the last part going into that college application GPA. I can also research my schools and visit my top choices. Obviously, right now with COVID, we can't really do in-person visits for most of these schools, but they do have virtual visits online, and they also have visits that you can do with an admissions recruiter online in different Zooms, so I'd really encourage you to check those out. Also start thinking about teacher recommendations. For some schools and for all scholarships, you are going to need a teacher recommendation. So I would definitely think about the teachers that you've already developed relationships with and keep developing your relationship with those teachers, and maybe even mention that you might want to use them for a recommendation and see if they would be willing to do that for you. What I would personally recommend is that you go ahead and start a common application. Come and see me if you're a junior and you want to get started with this and I can help you. But there's a lot of the common app that you can actually do now, and you'll thank yourself so much this time next year that a lot of it is already filled out. But come and see me because there's a couple sections that you won't want to fill out. It won't transfer over, but I can help you get started with that. And then the biggest thing is, even though the schools that you apply to next year are not going to see your senior year grades, they are going to see your senior year schedule. And for schools like FSU and UF, and if you're applying to an Ivy League or a top 50 school, it's really important that you have a rigorous senior year schedule. So I know that, it's a lot of times we think we're going to be so busy senior year, which we definitely will be, and we're trying to give ourselves a break, but it's really important that you continue to build a strong schedule so that they can see that that's the type of student that you are. You're still willing to challenge yourself. You're still committed to learning through your senior year. This next section, I am really not going to read all of this to you, but I want to have it so that you can pause it and look at what each school is going to require for their application. So at this point, I'm just going to go through the slides of the top Florida schools so that you have a bulleted list of what is required for these applications, whether they use Common App, Coalition, or institutional apps, and if they use the SAR. So this is Florida Atlantic University.
Florida A&M University. Florida Gulf Coast University. Florida International University.
Florida State University. University of Central Florida. University of Florida.
University of North Florida.
University of South Florida. Pasco Hernando State College.
Thank you so much for joining us for our college admissions presentation. We've gone over a lot of information, and I'm sure you'll have questions as you begin the college application process. Please don't hesitate to reach out by phone or email or text me via Remind if you have any questions or would like to meet to discuss your situation personally. I am so excited for you and wish you the best of luck. And remember, I am here for you, so let's work together. Have a great night.